first off, it's a pleasure to meet you. I've been watching you for many years, just through the March Madness and starting the Super Bowls and all of that. So, but first off, so I mean, you've had an amazing career. Started off with a broadcasting show that your brother showed you, and so.
Actually, no. What happened was I was selling hospital supplies in Detroit, and he was working out in Los Angeles, and he heard about auditions taking place for a weekend sportscasting job in Chicago. And he asked me if I was interested, and I said sure. So I flew into Chicago and I auditioned with a bunch of other people, and they said, "Don't call us, we'll call you." And 3 weeks later, they called.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I was lucky too.
Yeah.
Because I never took courses, I never took any classes or any training or any program, and neither did he. I personally think that those classes can help, but I also think that you either can do it or you can't.
Mm-hmm.
Now, that doesn't mean that everybody who can gets the chance. I happen to think that there are a bunch of people who are stuck in Keokuk, Iowa, or Battle Creek, Michigan, or Yuma, Arizona, who never get the opportunity. And my brother was fortunate that he was able to start in a market as large as Los Angeles, and I was able to start in a market as large as Chicago.
That's definitely a blessing. So I mean, you actually really answered my first question right there. So, but sorry, you played at Loras. You played here baseball, and you've broadcasted many sports: football, baseball, basketball, and then the Olympics, and you even did Muhammad Ali boxing. So, what did you prepare? Like, how did you prepare for each sporting event? Because I mean, sure, each sporting event is different. So, how did you prepare for each one?
Preparation is a couple of things. Eyeballs, what you see, which is why we attend practices prior to football games. What you know, which is your history of the sport, and you can tell there are some people who do sports, and you listen to them and you go, they don't really know the sport, they don't really know the game, they don't know the nuances. And also, we also have huge, like a football game, for instance. I will get research from my statistician on Tuesdays prior to a game. I will get research from CBS Sports Research on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. And research is simply background information, newspaper clippings, feature stories, things like that. Then once you get there, you attend practice sessions, you talk to players and coaches, chosen players and coaches in production meetings, home team on Friday, visiting team on Saturday when they come to town, and then you do the game on Sunday. But I also on Monday will make up my boards, which are cardboard about this big, and at each position you put the guy's names, numbers, height, weight, experience, statistics, and I do that on Monday and Tuesday, and then on Wednesday morning I tear them up and I do them again, because repetition kind of helps with the memory process. Number 88 this week is not number 88 from last week, and not from 88 the week before. And then travel on Friday morning, get there, talk to the home team, and then on Saturdays talk to the visiting team, production meeting, and do the game on Sunday.
Very nice. So, out of all of your all the events you've done, which one is your most favorite event, or which one that you take the most pride in that you've done?
I think it's hard to say in a way. I think each of them have their own allure. I've done Super Bowls. There's something I never ever thought I would do. I've covered Olympics, which is something I never thought I would do. I've done Major League Baseball playoffs. I suppose the one that carries the most attraction to it is the Super Bowls and the Olympics. I know at the time that I did the Olympics in Norway in 1994, it was by far the most viewed Olympic Games ever. And it was, I suppose it has this incredible attraction because of the location. I never in my life dreamed I would end up in Norway, let alone spend 5 weeks there. And by the time you go home, you're up to here with salmon, and with reindeer meat. But it was probably those Olympic experiences. I also did Atlanta in 1996 and Albertville, France in 1992. But Norway was the most unusual.
Yeah. So, I mean, how did reindeer meat taste? I thought that was interesting.
A little grungy, it's definitely different.
Yeah.
Because the first time you think you're eating a hamburger, and after about the second bite you realize it isn't.
Yeah.
I suppose it takes some getting used to. I didn't really want to get used to it though. We actually, our production staff found a McDonald's in Lillehammer, Norway, and we used to order in for every night for our production meeting.
Oh, wow.
And they just loved to get phone calls from us because we'd be ordering like 250 burgers, 250 orders of fries, and they were just thrilled to death that we were in town.
Yeah. So, I mean, so speaking of the Olympics, one of my good friends is Missy Franklin. And this past Olympics, she didn't really have that best of a best turnout as she'd like. What do you think went wrong with her there?
It's from miles and miles away. It's hard to say. I do know that as prepared as an athlete thinks that he or she is, they never really know how they're going to perform once they get to the competition. And it's not just her. If you consider the number of times teams get upset, they're the favorite team and they get upset. Why? Because they don't perform as well as people usually expect them to, because they've been outperformed by someone else. In basketball, it's a simple question of whether or not you bring your jump shot to the gym that night. If your shots are falling, you're going to do well. If they aren't, then you're not. People think that upsets are so rare, but do you realize they happen every single Sunday in the National Football League? And an upset is simply the team that's not expected to win, winning the game. And it just depends on how well preparation goes into it, of course. There are good coaches, and there are other coaches who aren't as good. Some are better prepared than others. Some are more ready to take on the opposition than others are. Bill Belichick comes to mind. I don't care what you think of Bill Belichick personally. There's something wrong with you if you don't acknowledge that he is a superior head coach.
He's definitely one of the greatest coaches out there.
And so I think that that's part of the whole athletic thing. You never really know what's going to happen until you get out there on the field and you find out who's playing well and who isn't. And to me, part of the real attraction in sports is why things happen the way they do.
All right, so we got a couple more questions here. One of the more big one is so over the past years we've seen a lot of changes in sports and like the different rules to help make the sport safer. What do you think they could do to help make concussions less relevant? Not relevant, but prominent.
It's that kind of a game, and I'm not sure that certainly changes to equipment are important. And the more people learn about it, and the better you can equip an athlete, the better everyone is going to be. But that said, it's kind of like, can you really go swimming without getting wet? It carries its own natural problems with it, and there are going to be injuries. And we're seeing more and more athletes who recognize that and who are calling it quits at age 24, 25, or 26. And I've heard some guys say it's because they want to be able to play with their children, or they want to remember things when they get older. And I can't blame them for that, but I think the people who play the game know the risks. I asked my partner, my one-time partner was Dan Deerdorf, who's had both hips replaced, both knees replaced, and had back surgery. And I asked him if he would do it again, and he said in a heartbeat.
Yeah.
In a heartbeat, he'd do it all over again.
Yeah, and so one of the last questions that I'll leave you with is, so one of my favorite sports figures is Vince Lombardi. He's just been a great idol for me, one of my biggest role models. Who's a big sports idol for you that other people can look up to?
I always try to differentiate between idols and favorites. I don't think you should put anybody up on a pedestal.
Okay.
I think you admire their accomplishments, you admire their ability, but if you deify someone, sooner or later they're going to be something that you don't want them to be, and that's human. And they are going to make a mistake, and they're going to fall, and everybody's going to come down on him for being just what he or she is, a person who makes mistakes on occasion. But having said that, there are certainly some that are better than others. Derek Jeter is a lot better. Peyton Manning, Tom Brady, those guys exemplify what the sports are and should be.
Okay. Yeah, and so last question, it's a ballpark question. Who do you think is going to win the World Series this year? Think it's going to be a Cubs 2-peat?
You know, as a long time White Sox fan, it hurt last year, but I was really happy for them. My brother, all he ever said was, "Oh, I hope to live long enough to see my Cubbies win a World Series." I said, "Yeah, well, you just made it under the wire." But I told him, I said, I knew the Cubs were going to win the World Series when they got Joe Madden as a manager, because I think he's the best manager in baseball. And the Cubs are also pretty well equipped to contend for a number of years. So they finally have something to cheer about over there. I used to go to Wrigley Field and immediately buy the baseball cap of the visiting team. Whoever was in town, Cincinnati Reds cap or Pittsburgh Pirates cap, and just sit there and just cheer against the Cubs.
Oh, man.
And in fact, I used to walk onto the field, and guys like Billy Williams would say, "Oh, here comes that Cub hater." It is what it is.
Well, fantastic. Thank you so much. It's
My
a pleasure.
You bet. Thank
Thank
you.
you.